And we have arrived, ladies and gentlemen, at the inevitable, the conclusion to the arc we have been lately on, you know, to see all of Homeworld and what it has to offer. Culminating in this, Homeworld free review by MandaloreGaming, like the prophesized review, you know. The thing we've been building up to for like more than a month now, I think, which is kinda insane if you think about it. And like, oh boy, I heard it's gonna be a little bit rough. But, you know, I'm gonna keep an open mind. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe some of chat just overreacted, you know. So yeah, let's see if Homeworld 3 lives up to Homeworld 2's legacy. I'm not gonna say Homeworld 1, I'm not gonna say Cataclysm, because that's a legacy that Homeworld 2 didn't live up to, I think. But, you know, we're getting glassed on Karak with this one. Well, the Xeno faction picked the glass him option without, you know, knowing the context, so they're bad, you know. They're bad. Whew. I mean, looks good, you know? Looks good. I mean, it's a game that came out this year or 23? Gotta look that up real quick. Homeworld 3 came out this year, in May of this year. It literally came out 3 months ago, man. Holy, that is a recent ass game. 36% liked this video game on Google. What does Steam have to say about this? Mostly negative, 38% out of 4,400 reviews. 21% in recent reviews out of the last 30 days. Holy fuck. What is happening, man? What is happening? I would rather get devoured and melted in my ship by the beast. God fucking damn it. Okay. Without further ado, let's get into it, man. From everything I'm seeing, this may be the possibly the end of the Homeworld franchise, which is a little bit funny and a whole lot more sad than that, you know. Oh, yo! That's their old logo. That's not the one they got after defeating the beast. Okay, so that's what we've been talking about, the decanonization of Cataclysm. Okay. Oh man, holy shit! Mandalore took this very badly. I mean that's a bastardization of a fucking great story, but it's often the case with spin-offs and such, you know. Maybe the rest of the story defends itself, you know, by having a good story, you know. Maybe they have other things in the oven. Maybe they cooking.
After 20 years, Homeworld 2 finally has its follow-up. No prequel games, no spin-offs, this is Homeworld 3 proper. I had expectations going in, good and bad. I can safely say, I didn't expect 3 to remind me of Genesis Rising, because the gameplay there was definitely Homeworld inspired, and they wanted to take that even farther with 3D space, but they didn't have the time and budget. I was more reminded of some cutscenes where I had a very simple takeaway.
Whoa!
Is this some kind of fetish thing? Well, where Genesis Rising did not resonate, apparently Homeworld 3 has. So, holy shit. Still, even though I've racked my brain for weeks now thinking about the story,
I'm gonna need some context on that scene. Can we call in the lore masters? I'm assuming we'll get the context like later in the video, but
of Homeworld 3, and
trying to keep an open mind.
We'll get into that later. There's still a lot else to consider, like gameplay modes. 3 is heavily banking on one called War Games, which is a roguelike mode you can play in co-op. Apparently this is
Mm, um, a real-time strategy banking on a co-op mode. What the fuck? What's wrong with just playing PvP online? RTS is built for that, right? Like 4X and RTS games are built for, competing with other players. And like you can play online with guys. I'm assuming this has like online PvP, like skirmish and whatnot, but focusing on PvE modes, rather co-op modes, seems a little bit weird.
Isn't a side activity, but it's supposed to be the main draw of the game. At least that's how it comes.
That sounds fucking ridiculous. I'm sorry, that sounds misguided as all fuck. What the hell? That would be like a new Yakuza game coming out and it's a fucking battle royale PvP oriented game where you're fucking running around as, Majima shooting dudes in the head. Except that would be way more hype than this.
Across when the entire post-launch support plan is all about wargames. There will be some new maps and other changes to skirmish, but wow, they are all in on wargames. It is worth pointing.
I don't get it. That is a very weird decision. This is fucking laughable. Do they think like, what do they think civilization, why is it so relevant up to now? Because you can play it against your friends, you can play it against online dudes, and Civ is literally built upon adding new factions so you can fucking play new factions in PvP against other players. What are we doing? What are we talking about, dude? Like, what?
That out because
I'm sorry, I'm stuck on this, but this feels like a very baffling decision. Like commercially, as a company, when you make a product, this just doesn't make sense, man.
We bought this for the campaign, but I will talk about all that stuff afterwards. A lot of features and mechanics obviously blanket cover the whole game, but if that is supposed to be the selling point of the game, I'll spend more.
The game looks fucking gorgeous, by the way, but it's a given since it's so recent.
More time on that than I would normally. Okay, so to give some story background, Homeworld 2 ended with the Age of Sajet. The magical hyperspace cores were slapped in the ancient vessel Sejuk, and the network of galactic hyperspace gates were opened. This brought a new age of peace and prosperity, and Karen was truly the chosen one. Homeworld 2
that would be like Bungie releasing a new marathon game and it would be an extraction shooter. God damn. Imagine if that happened, huh? That would be fucking crazy, huh? Man, that would never happen. I'm still an outsider even after seeing the Cataclysm and Karak reviews, but I can already feel the wrong dripping of this. Yeah, like, goddamn, co-op focused. Holy shit. Man, Bungie is so fucking cooked. Like, Bungie is just going nowhere in the future after all the fucking controversy they went through, man. Watch them launch Marathon, and it's still gonna be fucking successful because Destiny 2, like, people who are jacked in their way to fucking deep in will support the game anyway.
Story wasn't so good, but it's been over a century since then. You now play as Imogen Sajet, the granddaughter or pupil of Karen Sajet. She hangs out with Imogen when she's 6 or 7 and likes to sing lullabies to her. And I promise this is all relevant, because this is the most directly character-driven story in the franchise. Usually a character was a stand-in for an entire people or an ideology, and Deserts broke off from that a little bit, but there were bigger things going on than individual character arcs. Anyways, Imogen is a genius, and the granddaughter of the leader of Kith Sajet. She earns points fast too, because she seems to want to undo the prophecies and mysticism of the second game.
The synthetic hyperspace cores I designed were perfect, and I was to begin training a team of navigators. They were going to usher in a new age for my people, freeing us from reliance on ancient, unfathomable progenitor technology.
So far, so good. However...
Yeah, that's a good setup. That's a good setup,
Imogen has been chosen to be fleet command for a new mothership. Being entombed inside of a ship is now called being a navigator. Before they were called Unbound, but it's the same thing, new name. The rush into service is due to something called the anomaly, which is affecting the hyperspace network. After a few Boeing tier malfunctions, Karen Sajet was sent back in with her ship, the Kar Sajuk. She went beyond contact, but the anomaly stopped.
Oh man, that is quite the choice of words. Boeing tier malfunctions. Holy.
And that was 20 years ago. Until now, when the anomaly region suddenly reactivated and threw out tons of space debris, killing billions. It's too targeted to be random, so something is trying to wipe out all of galactic civilization, and the stakes are impossibly high.
Every simulation we've run results in the total collapse of galactic civilization.
So Imogen, already having made synthetic hyperspace cores and basically being the leading expert on the subject, makes the most sense to send in immediately because there's no time to train other navigators. The journey takes you across the galaxy trying to find the source of the anomaly, and trying to find out what happened to Karen Sajet 20 years ago. Without spoiling anything, the story feels a bit like Homeworld 2 2.0. A lot of the concepts here were planned for the original 2, but they proved too ambitious and demanding for 2003. Like having gigantic megastructures you can navigate inside and around, compared to the actual release, which just had them mainly in the background. There were some structures, but not too mega, and even the remasters didn't try to touch that up. They did pull off having these massive structures, but let's look at everything else visual too.
I see.
When it comes to the interface, the good news is that some improvements are made after the public demo.
Man,
Because
whoever said that I need to watch Genesis Rising before this, you the fucking MVP, man. That was definitely a good choice.
the game was delayed again. Even though there are tabs I wish I could remove like gameplay events or speech recall, you can at least scale the entire interface now. In fact, all the controls and visual indicators are extremely customizable. You can even choose a baseline preset, in my case the Homeworld Remaster controls, and then work from there. It can take time to get all your space paperwork in order, or your fleet roster will switch around if there's an option buried for it somewhere. But the big one—
that's good. Options are good, you know.
Ones can be taken care of, and the one to point out especially is N-Ellipse, which stands for nonlinear inverse perspective scrolling. In human terms, in the old games when you zoomed out, some ship models would actually scale up a bit, just to make them more easily selectable and see what they're doing, and if you zoomed in, it would go back to the normal scale. The effect worked so well that it was fairly hard to notice if you didn't know about it. As for Homeworld 3, it was bad in the demo, so they added a scaling option, and it's still fucking horrible. These are tiny strike craft, and the sense of scale is completely broken. For reference, here's how big it should actually be. Where you couldn't tell before, you can almost see the ships actually scaling with the camera this round. I'd imagine if you don't know about this setting, it makes the scale and feel of fights incredibly strange, to the point that it looks like fighters would barely fit inside the carriers they're chasing, or your tiny probes look like large warships. And this is all on the bare minimum scaling option. There's a chance you still might find this handy, but for the most part, this looks insane, so I'd recommend most people turn that off. Because with all the tools at your disposal, it's still easy to keep track of things. It's just that now you could do it without your ships. Oh, fuck. Anyway, I do like the look of the new mothership, the Kar Kushan. Compared to the Pride of Hagara, this does properly look meant for war and exploration. If you did like the old vertical view, you can rotate it, and there are a few cases where that's helpful in combat. It has point defense weapons on rails on the sides of it, so you can rotate it around to get a better firing solution. You don't get an opportunity that often, but it is cool when you do.
Yeah.
It's a very sleek and efficient ship, and the same can be said for the entire Hagaran fleet. For example, this time around frigates come in all kinds of variations, but
Independence Day Resurgence ship. Oh man, don't fucking do them this dirty, man. Oh man.
this time you can really tell they're a variant. When you inspect them, you can see the different weapons, the size of the hull can change around. The previous games were like this too, but the roster was more spread across the classes. You could have 5 kinds of strike craft that looked radically different, or move up into different kinds of corvettes, or even capital ships. They had clear design styles, and even with Homeworld 2 having a more space boat look, they still kept that. So going back to Homeworld 3 frigates, individually they are well thought out and well designed spacecraft. They look appropriate for their role and are fitting for what Hagara is now. They're sleek, wedge-shaped death machines.
The maps are fucking amazing, man. The maps are like the clear best thing I've seen so far. Like this ice planet asteroid thing that you supposedly can fly into. That looks fucking cool. How did they fuck this up? How did they fuck this up, man?
But in a group, they get tricky to tell apart. It's not really a gameplay issue because you should be grouping them properly, but as a collective, they're just not that visually interesting, and the one ship that does break the mold is the support frigate. Again, they are all the same ship class, so this does make sense logically. The problem is the rest of the roster. Higarans now only have one kind of corvette, which does look to be an evolution of a mover. When you get a destroyer, it's the same wedge shape as the frigates. And the battlecruiser gets wider, but it's a similar profile. Thankfully, the carrier is an exception, and there are other unique designs inside the fleet, but most of it is incredibly uniform now. There could still be a theme to this, like the Higarans are completely united and their enemies have varying ships because they're not. The thing is, the faction you fight for most of the game, the Incarnate, has the exact same problem. Most of their roster looks like deformed cigars, which you would think would stand out from your own ships, but together, they're still remarkably similar. For how many designs and silhouettes this franchise has had, most of them now being a funky rectangle feels very underwhelming. You know, when you went to the Garden of Kadesh,
sad.
they were a branch of your own people, but their ships still felt exotic and alien. The Incarnate seem like they should be even more bizarre than you, but visually, they're pretty similar. And I don't know if it's that way thematically, or if they're supposed to be easier to pick out when playing something like war games. They're slightly taller craft, but I wish they twisted that farther. To clarify, I don't think they're bad designs, but I think each faction needed more ships to break those molds. It's still a visually gorgeous game. The space structures are impossibly gigantic, but also full of detail. Regardless of the designs, all the ships are high fidelity too, especially for a strategy game. They can still have creative animations and other nice little touches to them. Even down to the smallest craft, there was a lot of love put into these. It's still one of those games where it's tempting to zoom in on a ship and watch the action for a while. There's great use of light and shadows, and some parts do look amazing. There's some really visceral destruction effects this time too, which does make it a shame there's no proper ramming. As for what I don't like, this is another one of those Unreal games without separated post-processing options, which means you can't control individual effects like bloom or depth of field. On top of that, most maps have some kind of dust or fog or particle clouds around. Then you have your limited anti-aliasing options and then
I fucking hate bloom, man.
DLSS or
I want it off in every single fucking game.
Whatever upscaler you choose if you go that route. But in short, and it might not show up on YouTube, there's this subtle kind of blur effect over everything. Your ships are already being obscured by fog most of the time, and then you have the rendering settings on top of that. There's not a single map just out in the void of space. There are other problems attached to that, which I'll get into soon, but it's funny that the closer you get to that, the more your ships actually pop out. Even though the remasters are years old now, they have this sharp clarity to them that 3 doesn't. And no, this isn't my first rodeo, there are plenty of other Unreal titles drowning in post-processing nowadays. But man, I wish more games still give you direct control of those options. It's still a very pretty game, just keep in mind it's also a CPU-bound one. Your settings should be fine most of the time, but the big battles can always chug. To take a more radical turn, I also want to talk about the cutscenes. It was a very slow march to get here, but you could still track it. In games like the original or Cataclysm, you could tell the Kushan were humanoid, but you weren't quite sure if they were.
I understand bloom to hide mistakes or if you're going from indoors to outdoors, but it shouldn't last. Yeah, like when you have this big fuck off fight and everything is just burning your eyes, it gets a little bit silly, you know. Having ways to suit the picture to your eye with graphics options would be nice.
It was a very slow march to get here, but you could still track it. In games like the original or Cataclysm, you could tell the Kushan were humanoid, but you weren't quite sure if they were human. It seemed like they could be, but they were always obscured in shadow or had strange designs that made you second guess, because they weren't really the focus.
Kingdom Hearts 2 has screwed us again.
He needs to stop playing that fucking... He needs to stop playing that soundbite because I don't know the context and it scares me.
The captain of the Kunlun is a character, but really, he represents all of Kith Samta. Karen Sajet is also a character, but really, she's all the Kushan. Fleet Intelligence is also just another facet of that. All of the Bentus you run into in the franchise are voiced by Campbell Lane. They could be the exact same character, but it doesn't matter. He's essentially all the Bentusi, and your lizard brain gets that. Then Homeworld 2 came and said, they're all definitely human by the way. The cutscenes still maintain that style, and there wasn't personal human drama. I mean, I guess there was Makan, but whatever his people were up to, it was so unclear, they were actually called the Vagar. Then you have deserts, and they're even more on the screen, and there's a little more human drama. It is weaker compared to the greater underlying tragedy of everything else going on, but it drove the story forward and was ultimately a minor detail in that bigger story. So when 3 opens with Imogen in full view humming her comfort lullaby, it seems like it might be deserts and this will taper off. but you soon come to realize this is going to be a character drama. There is now a human face attached to everything and everyone. It's a subtle effect, but it manages to undercut some things.
Hear me now. I use your barbaric tongue to deliver an ultimatum.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, give me a second. There he is, just in case you thought the Incarnate might be aliens or...
Oh my fucking god, why would you do this? Why would you do this? This literally removes like part of the fucking cool factor of the game. You know, the mystery, like, ooh, who could they be? What could they look like? And the image in your head will always be fucking cooler than whatever the character designers can come up with, man. What the hell? When Homeworld starts to look like a modern Square Enix game, that's not one problem, that's several. That is very true.
something strange. Or, God forbid, thinking that the ship might really represent the character.
This is Pack Leader Baldrokar. I have demands of your sage.
Who?
Maybe this was inevitable with the RPGs and other spin-off media it has. It feels like we've lost a lot of mystique.
You thought they were cool aliens? Nah, just humans.
Beyond that, the more simple cutscenes from before were something unique about the games. Now we're firmly in the uncanny valley. They're going for high fidelity, but character lines don't quite match the lip syncing, but above that, the characters can be wildly over-animated for their delivery.
I don't... This isn't... Where am I? Intel, this is Fleet Command. Please come in. Does anyone read me? Saints and sinners, how did I get here?
I'm not...
Bro, this is fucking Square Enix cutscene. What the fuck? Why are we playing like Final Fantasy 13 free, man? What happened to Homeworld? Do they remember what Homeworld was about? I'm starting to lose some of that positivity I had going into this, you know. But you know, it's cool, it's fine, you know. Just keep going. Don't lose faith now.
Sure why they went with this direction, but I did find something interesting while reading the game's manual, which was written by Homeworld's original writer. It has all the new history, ship information, but something else caught my attention. It's Imogen's first line, which, if you read it before the game, is her introduction. Just Imogen is fine. My project director told me I had to put a human face on things, so here I am. I thought that was interesting.
Ponder that.
When it comes to the game's soundscape, overall, it's still great. You hear the rattling of ballistics and the punch of heavier weapons, and it maintains the professionals under stress voice acting.
That's music to my ears. You can hear the fucking machine gun winding up, man. Holy. That's some good sound effects. Holy shit.
They are not too happy about it. Ops, advise caution during crew transfer. Ops controller, enemy frigate down.
There have been some
How did they fuck this up, man? How did they fuck this up?
noticeable changes. Some sound effects like explosions seem to be more muffled this round. I don't know if that's to balance it against the rest of the mix, or if it's supposed to be more internal explosion. Which would be an odd choice because Homeworld never cared about realistic sound for the better, but it was the one thing there that made me curious. As for voiceover, it's the busiest the games have ever been, with one interesting exception.
Group 1 copies.
When selected, units no longer declare their group number, but instead the groups are more accounted for in the dynamic battle chatter. You're fed more direct information from Imogen.
Watch Group 2, they're taking losses.
That's a fine trade-off because there's so much battle chatter now, when a group is mentioned, that means you should be paying attention. Also, unlike Karen, who has trained for the position a long time, Imogen was rushed into it. Karen typically kept it cool, but you would hear some pain in her voice if she announced the ship loss of something like a carrier. Because Imogen isn't as experienced, you hear her breaking a little more when things go south.
Group 7, support needed.
A resource controller has been destroyed. We have lost a resource controller.
It's a clever and subtle way of showing how her character is different than Karen without something more ham-fisted. And let me tell you, Machine for Pigs didn't have as many ham-fists as some of these cutscenes. But in the main game, everything is very good. Like, ships will even announce what they're engaging and add more direct context into the fight.
Lead into it. Yes, copy. Threat identified. Enemy carrier. Fast and loose, in and out. Group engineering, replace those relays or this is going to be a short trip.
While it is very good, my only letdown on this front was the music. It's the same composer, he's still using a wide amount of instruments, but the music is much more ambient.
Hostile Corvette. ID confirmed.
I mean, that's fine, I guess. Weirdly sounds more like something you would hear in Deserts of Karak, which is kind of weird, but you know, maybe it's symbolism.
It's understated in a way the previous games haven't been. Like someone had an idea that the music shouldn't be too bombastic or else that'll distract from the gameplay. I cranked it up in the mix and there were times where it was hard to tell if music was playing at all, and it usually was, just very spaced out percussion. I mean, even the cutscenes, which are completely curated and you can time them however you want, still don't have high energy. The final mission music sounded like it could be anywhere else in the game. It is so strange, especially considering where things were before.
Have been processed, and our colonists are safe for now.
This one is so fucking good, man. It's crazy how much of Homeworld 1's soundtrack reminds me of Halo. You know, the most fucking iconic soundtrack of any game ever, pretty much.
I guess it's good there's so much unit chatter. Maybe someone thought the music would interrupt that? There is one solid moment, but it's a spoiler, so that'll have to be for later. It's still a fleeting one, and I don't know why the rest is like this. It is disappointing, but otherwise, I would still say the audio and visuals of the game are in a good spot. Actually, I would say they're currently the best part of the game. So now you know I'm about to talk some shit. Talking gameplay, I'm going to assume you know about Homeworld. Either you've played it, you've watched my videos, you've watched someone else's, it doesn't matter. I don't want to be retreading a lot, but I will start with what's good. Having so many control and interface options around is welcome. There's a hotkey for selecting damaged units in a group, and it makes redocking for repairs easy. You can go as far as customizing the exact percentage that would count as damaged. Your shipbuilding icon shows how many you already have, which could be redundant, but it is nice. If you find everything too overwhelming, you can pause or slow down the game to give orders in. I don't use it, but it's a handy option, and the game has tons of handy options and features like that. I could go through a lot, but the problem is the basic things that aren't in the game or non-functional. Then add on a pile of behavior problems, missing features from previous games that would have made a lot of sense here, and then the general balance on top of all of that. So let's start with Grugbrain RTS basics. Unit stances are a good place to start. Will they chase their enemies, hold their ground and shoot, or do nothing? In previous Homeworld games, these would affect a ship's maneuverability and firepower. Aggressive would have you dish out more firepower while being less maneuverable, and evasive was the opposite, and neutral was a nice balance. There were also tactics, which is usually what you think of stances being, where it decides how they engage with the enemy. Do they chase them or hold still? 3 only has regular RTS stances, which is a step down, but the behaviors are bizarre, because they're also kind of combined with the old stance system. So aggressive ships chase enemies down until one of them dies. Simple. Then neutral ships will chase enemies a short distance, but are mainly just defending themselves or nearby vessels. But they'll also try to maneuver around objects in space to use them as cover. So for example, you can't send fighters out to chase something using less firepower but using cover, you can only choose between those two options. Those don't really go together, but then there's the third option, which is passive, where a ship does not attack unless it's attacked. That turns it into a bit of a brick, but what if you have a long-range ship like a torpedo or ion frigate and you want it to hold position and fire from max range? Not only is that not possible to order, but torpedo frigates are completely broken. They
What do you mean? The sniper unit that is made to be a sniper can't hold position and fucking fire from it. Have they played a fucking strategy game in their fucking life?
only fire from max range, and will even retreat back in order to do so. If you've played the game and wonder why they wander all over the place, that's why. The issue is, even if they fix this, there's no way to make them just hold position and shoot. The old games didn't have this either, but you could assign them to guard mode to a ship, and if that ship stayed still, they'd also hang out there. It wasn't perfect, but they behaved, and the core problem is Homeworld 3's ships do not, along with everything else buggy that can happen. You can order support frigates to guard a ship to heal it and vessels around it, and it works sometimes. Which is similar to some occasions where units forget they're alive and just sit there until you poke them. You tell Strikecraft to dock and instead they don't and keep getting in fights. You know, I've played RTS games where some functions just never worked, and you learn to live with that. It's like the difference of your internet being out compared to agonizingly slow. I don't have a better way to put it, all the Higaran pilots seem fucking plastered. Friends, it has been years since I played an RTS game that was this inconsistent. And I'm including the launch version of Warhammer 3. I know it's gotten a lot better, but it's not time yet. To make it more maddening, it's inconsistent across game modes. It seems like guard mode works way better in war games, and I don't know why. Like, check this out, even the torpedo frigates are acting correctly here. Or here where, well, the support ship got a bit lost. But then you'll notice sometimes functions aren't working due to game balance. Like, take the Kar-Kushan. It's a big centerpiece vessel that you can easily concentrate a fleet around. But for some reason beyond me, for a ship this big, it moves like Jesse Owens. It's outrunning the fleet that's trying to guard it, and the campaign gives you a passive speed up.
What are we... Yo? What are we cooking, man? This is just bizarre. This is just strange a little bit, if you ask me. It's like they made a strategy game, but instead of focusing on core gameplay, which is strategy games, all about gameplay, man. Literally all gameplay. And then if you get aesthetics in, people will be like, oh, this looks fucking great, man. And they've instead like focused on the aesthetics and forgot about the gameplay? What?
Upgrade on top of that. The result is a gargantuan fuck you factory ship that moves really fast, with units that are very inconsistent in their behaviors. This makes the most viable strategy blobbing everything around it and just charging forward. With the state of the game, the tactical options around that are just too unreliable, especially when the time to kill for ships is ridiculously fast even after the buffs they made after the demo. I'm
cooking meth, it looks like. Jesse, we need to put in the giant woman, Jesse, skin tight suits, Jesse. Yo, Mr. White, we're making a strategy game here. What the fuck is a strategy game, Jesse? 3 can't catch up with what the broken and buggy Genesis does mechanic-wise. A game from 2007, if I'm correct. Let alone match what previous entries did. Put things into perspective, doesn't it? God damn. And they say video games aren't that bad. Video game industry isn't fucking regressing, man. Like, people will toot that horn till they're fucking dead, but like then you get games like this. Like, every game into a pre-established franchise somehow misses like almost all of the points from the previous entries. Like, it's happening again and again and again and again. And at what point do we just admit, yeah, game industry kinda lost its way slightly? Like, I'm fully expecting Civ 7 to be... Civ 6 is already a step down from Civ 5. I'm expecting Civ 7 coming up to be not that fucking great, man. Which then, of course, will be fixed with DLCs. You know, the fucking mechanics that were their base game in the previous one will be DLC now. Yummy, eat that slop.
melted through one of the bosses so quickly that it actually started skipping his lines. Battle cruisers, which should be terrifying, are instead just pitiful. And unfortunately, this goes for yours too. Once again, except in war games, where they're buffed up and very dangerous. and also behave better. For whatever reason, a lot of ships will only try to engage each other on a similar plane, instead of using all of 3D space to fight from whatever's a good firing angle. Sure, one effect is the battles don't physically look as dynamic, but more importantly, it goes in the list of why isn't my ship doing what I told it to. It might be trying to line up evenly with an enemy, like they're space jousting, or the enemy ships will slam face down into yours, like a school of Amazonian catfish who just smelled the biggest Gushers enjoyer take a hot piss in the river. I am sorry if this is more disorganized, but there are so many
Who wants to bet this is why ramming is not in the game? Because the units would randomly ram into enemies and like fucking, you know, Japan war pilot themselves into a fucking battleship and do like no damage. I hate the whole wait for DLCs mindset now. It's fucking crazy we de-evolved to wait for DLCs, man. Jesus fucking Christ. Remember when it was just first it was the game releases and you expect it to be the complete package, you know? Then we moved the goalpost to wait for updates, usually small updates, yeah, like day one DLC, day one patch, and the patch the next week will fix most of the issues, and then wait 6 months for fucking updates and fixes for the game to be stable before playing, and now it's wait 6 months for the expansion that you have to fucking pay for that will fix the issues of the base game. Oh my fucking god.
enemy ships will slam face down into yours, like a school of Amazonian catfish who
Like this has to be why they disabled ramming.
just smelled the biggest Gushers enjoyer take a hot piss in the river. I am sorry if this is more disorganized, but there are so many issues hitting at once, it's hard to pick where to start. It's like being attacked by a bear and my head is on fire, I don't know what to scream about first. Okay, let's roll back a bit to the time to kill thing. How do you mitigate it without a flat health buff? What they settled on was directional damage. If you hit the enemies from the sides and the back, it'll hit them harder. The previous games had this as well, and the best tactic, like here, is to hit them in the back. The issue is enemies already die from the front quickly enough, and unless they're strikecraft, the time you spent maneuvering around them could have just been spent killing them. Well, Homeworld 2 beefed up capital ships and added subsystems. Cataclysm sort of had this first, but this is a way better implementation. Besides letting you customize and upgrade your ships a bit more, it made capital fights a lot more tactical. You could target enemy missile batteries or facilities that made smaller craft. They were longer fights and more engaging because you decided what to cripple first. Directional armor was still in play too, so you had a lot to consider. Capital ship battles could still become a blobby slugfest. But during that, you could play the game on a micro level, launching bombing runs in facilities, filling their fuel tanks with sand, whatever. It was maybe the best gameplay addition Homeworld 2 brought, and it's not here. Now, the gameplay reason
Classic.
is that... I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I don't know what's going on.
I gotta get you out of here!
The closest thing you get is
Okay,
that some campaign maps
That game I don't know.
have a facility you can take down that'll stop enemies from spawning there, but that is separated from the core fights. There's a lot of other features that would make sense to have, like we're back to building individual strikecraft and not squadrons like Homeworld 2, and in the campaign, battle damage to your ship stays between missions. So then, why not have the veterancy from Cataclysm or Deserts of Carrick? Actually, if the mothership is going to be so proactive now, that power shunting mechanic could have been great here too. And yeah, I know it's usually low-hanging fruit to go, the new games don't have things the old games had. I would understand more if Homeworld 3 was just different, but it's a step backwards in multiple areas. So let's talk about things that are new, like unit abilities. In the demo, these had no drawbacks, and you would basically want to spam them as soon as they were off cooldown. In theory, you could time them more tactically, but there was barely a reason to with the fast cooldown, and the effects would usually be a flat speed or damage buff, or some kind of active extra damage ability. A few of these were reworked before launch to have some kind of trade-off, so some have more thought.
That was Darkest of Days or something like that. It was his most recent review. Okay.
But others are still click every 45 seconds for extra targeted damage. So a lot of the micro potential is selecting a ship to use an ability to shoot a ship you were already shooting, or increase the max range of torpedo frigates temporarily, which currently makes them more of a problem. The mothership's missile is neat, but it's in the same territory. If you could autocast a bunch of these, I bet people would do it and not look back. Plus, you already can autocycle some like the bomber's cloak. There are precious few utility abilities, and some are just bad, like do you want to turn off all the battlecruiser's guns to buff its allies? Though with how bad the battlecruiser is, maybe that's okay. Once again, the abilities could make sense if you're having to maneuver into a vulnerable position and then fire away, and maybe it had a longer cooldown, but the time to kill is already so fast that that factor doesn't matter. And all of this factors into the space structures as well. You can use them as physical cover or to hide from sensors, or navigate through tunnels. They introduce it as a great way to flank enemies, vanishing from sensors, appearing somewhere else, and then hitting them from the back. Or you can do a kind of Death Star run through a trench to avoid enemy fire. Unfortunately, it only comes across as a gimmick, and even when it's first introduced, you can completely ignore it to no consequence. The idea of space cover is interesting, but ultimately, I just wished I could stick vessels onto the mothership. If they could stick to a side of it consistently, that rotation move could be really fun. Right now the cover is rarely useful, and if you set them to the stance to utilize it more, they'll usually weave between it and expose them to more fire. Which means you have to babysit them to use it effectively, when you could just be death blobbing again. Homeworld 3's problem is multiple design and functionality issues colliding at once. On paper, I understand how all of this should work, but it doesn't right now. Even if it did, it's still streamlined down from 20 years of games that came before. The entire USP of the game is built around a feature you can mainly ignore, and this also ended up hurting the campaign. There are 13 missions, a few of those are basically tutorials, and you feel very limited until about mission 7. They at least try to make the mission structure unique every time. It could be capturing points, a defense mission, a long battle with a boss fight. The issue here is that most of these maps are dominated by megastructures, and they're also small. You might have noticed this, but there is barely any footage of me using my sensors menu because I rarely needed it. There are no long treks across space or using nebulas anymore. Starting off in the skies of Hagara does look amazing, but you're still above a planet and you never go to the emptiness of space. You have nothing to actually contrast the megastructures against, and this makes everything feel closed in and limiting, and the gameplay mechanics just push that harder. To make it worse, as short and simple as these early missions are, you are bombarded with cutscenes. You can be interrupted multiple times in the space of 2 minutes, and some are just nothing. I just need to capture some points and, oh damn it. When the mission is done, you're then automatically sent to the next with no control on your end. You can still capture everything to make a death fleet, which is easier than ever, and this makes the game a cakewalk, so I tried to avoid that actually. Either way, the campaign feels small, with rushed and jarring pacing, which feels insane to say looking at these environments. Not that they have a 3-week elevator or anything, but man. And there were lots of other things too that didn't return from previous games, but it just feels like nitpicking when the core of the game is in this state. Besides, there's still a whole story and more to talk about, and if you don't want spoilers, skip to here.
That's I mean, that's literally the part everybody came here for, so... weird that this Space Trek game lacked the space part of that, and apparently the Trek part of that.
Alright, let's do it. Imogen is sent to track down Karen, who Hagaran Command has lost communication with. To be extra safe, Command will be cutting off communication with Imogen immediately. Good start. But first, the Kar needs production facilities installed at Space Station 315. Until, of course, you're ambushed by pirates. There's a lot I find interesting about this. There's a large tray that floats over with dramatic music, which evokes the cryo trays from Homeworld proper. How the pirates are introduced and the look of them is very similar to the Tyrannic Raiders. It's like they're trying to remix the visuals, but without the substance, because Carrick isn't burning, and you're not essentially discovering aliens for the first time. Though the number 315 is an activation phrase for me. It makes me think of James 3:15, and we'll use the King James version. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. Then this is followed up in 3:16 with, for where envying and strife is, there is confusion in every evil work. This is very appropriate today. Basically, these passages and the ones before are discussing what true wisdom is. In context, self-centered envious people who think they have wisdom do not have true wisdom. In this case, divine wisdom that comes from God. You're not truly wise if you think you got there by being dishonest and generally horrible, which is dead on for one of the characters. And sure, it is just a number, it can mean any biblical passage or be their door passcode, but it's something. Something for me to think about besides them trying to push their stupid catchphrase.
Sands and sinners. Sands and sinners, how did I get here?
Sands and sinners. You have to push through it.
If you drop a line like this 3 times in 3 minutes, most people are going to catch on to what you're trying to do. I'm very sorry, but I will not be buying a t-shirt today. When it comes to writing, there are more signs of little things having gone wrong. Like Fleet Intelligence Officer Isaac identifies the enemy as Kalen pirates, giving you pointers to take them down, and then later Imogen asks who they are and he explains that they're Kalen pirates. Sure, it's an inconsequential detail, but very early in the game. Probably a small thing that had to be rearranged for some production reason. I look at this in a different light now because I've seen the credits. Can you guess how many people have a narrative credit on the story? 3? Maybe 4? Now it could be they were generous, and if anyone had any story idea, they got a writing credit. I've consulted on some story stuff in games before without that kind of credit. I don't think there was ever a writing room with 14 people, at least, God, I hope not, but I have a deep suspicion this story may have gone through some huge revisions and it was a very messy process. Anyhow, the pirates can hyperspace through solid matter. This technology should be beyond them, and Isaac says they're not smart enough to do it themselves. The Higarans themselves can't do this, so where do they get this technology? Being new to Fleet Command, Imogen is deeply affected by hearing pilots die. After Sands and Sinners, this is where I truly realized there would not be much subtlety in the writing. Things you could figure out have to be spelled out to you.
The losses, but I don't want to forget them.
May the burden remain.
Sorry?
It's an old Pactu saying. Even in victory, there is loss. Forget that, is to forget them. May the burden remain.
This reminds me of a great line from Homeworld.
Extermination of our planet was the consequence. The subject did not survive interrogation.
And it just lingers on the shot of space. That says everything. If that scene took place in this game, Imogen would ask, "What do you mean? Their methods were harsh." Isn't that wrong? They destroyed our planet, Imogen. It doesn't mean we have to be monsters too. I am getting ahead of myself because you haven't seen the melodrama.
True, man. Oh, no room for subtlety in the fucking year of our Lord 2024, you know?
This game has, but it genuinely feels like a
beating you over the fucking head with a fucking hammer until you get it. Do you get it? Do you fucking get it? Do you fucking get it now? Suns and sinners. Suns! Do you get it? Suns! They come from a fucking sun planet, man. Jesus fucking Christ.
YA novel. When Imogen said she felt horrible for their losses but didn't want to forget them, and Isaac said let the burden remain.
14 writers, 0 editors, I guess. 14 writers, but how many of them were, you know, sober?
You could probably put 2 and 2 together. And a super genius like Imogen probably would too. It is possible this is a way of showing her character isn't connected to...
Although at this point, after Disco Elysium, I think like we used to joke about how writers are on crack or drunk of their mind or whatever. After Disco Elysium, I think the problem is the writers are too sober actually to write good. After Disco Elysium, I'm like, get them crack, man. Get those writers some speed so they can write something interesting. This is 1200 years after Karak, so why are they going on about suns still? Yeah, this is my fucking question too. Like, I get not forgetting your heritage, but this just sounds like they are bringing up, you know, those games that were actually good and had a good story. You will listen to our story and you will like it. Yeah, man.
Kushan culture. Besides being entombed in the core, she has an extra set of literal walls around her. But she's not cold, or I don't care how many lives it takes, the mission comes first. She clearly already cares about her people and feels awful when she loses them. So at worst, it seems like she spent most of her time in a laboratory doing STEM nerd shit and doesn't know some basic things and is just kind of awkward. Whenever she jumps to hyperspace, she has strange visions of what appear to be Stinger Flynn's island. A mysterious voice calls out to her, telling her to impose her will. I kind of wish I wrote a will before playing the fucking game. When you finally catch up to the Kaelin pirates, they call you the War Sage and accuse you of working for her. They don't elaborate on what this is, but change their mind during the fight, saying they're caught between an oblivious giant and a mad guy.
Just look at what Stephen King did when he was on drugs. Yeah, exactly, man. Winners don't do drugs. Okay, maybe, but writers should do drugs.
God. They die before they can drop any more hints, but Isaac still delivers a rousing speech to the crew. He gives them the full declassified mission briefing so they know the stakes, know how dangerous the anomaly is, but reassures them they have the finest ship and navigator in the entire fleet. It's a dense speech, but when Imogen asks if what he said was true, she clearly means, does he really think she's the best navigator?
Do you truly believe that, Isaac?
No.
Believe what?
What you just told the fleet.
Out there, in battle, doubt can kill you just as fast as hard vacuum. They need you to bury yours, so they can overcome theirs.
So we lie to them?
Isn't that immoral?
I think what I hate so much about this is it's the exact opposite of Homeworld Cataclysm. The Somta were a looked down upon mining clan who rose to a galactic challenge and succeeded. They won in spite of their lowly status, using tools not meant for the job. Imogen Sajet is a super genius who was mentored by Karen Sajet when she was 5. She's the granddaughter of the space president and flying the most advanced ship ever. When Isaac gives a speech to rally their already wounded forces, she finger-wags him for being slightly dishonest, and the dishonesty is implied to be about his faith in her particularly. This goes beyond self-doubt into just being self-centered. He's trying to keep the crew together as billions are dying, but since they wanted to tell a story about Imogen's self-doubt, it all comes across as extremely petty and stupid. It almost seems like there was a reason the series didn't have much direct character drama. Trailing Karen, they discovered the Incarnate, who bear the sign of Sejuk. They're able to use scavenged progenitor tech and seem like they
I really need to go have a bathroom break because I think like the next 12 minutes will really bust my fucking balls, so I need them in pristine condition before like the ball crashing commences, you know? So I'll be right back. Insert the legend about Morrowind's writer being on a week-long coke bender. I hope that legend is true because Morrowind's setting is like a primordial fucking memory of another world that came to somebody in a dream that was beamed to him by a outer god that decided to make contact with humanity via this method of sending down a dream about his home planet, because fucking Morrowind has such an alien setting. I sometimes think it ain't human work, you know. We can't think this abstract. Just have to piss off before getting pissed off. You know what they say, it's better to be pissed off than to get pissed on, which is exactly what fucking Gearbox did to all of the fans of Homeworld with Homeworld 3 apparently. So let's get back in there, you know. Let's get back into the story of Homeworld 3.
Have some connection to the voice in Imogen's hyperspace mind palace. But get this, Karen, while comatose, is there too. And Imogen reminisces on all the time they spent together when she was a child.
Always remember the things I have taught you, Imogen, no matter what the future brings. You are going to burn very bright, my little star. I know goodbyes are hard. Let me sing our lullaby.
I'm convinced there is no way Imogen wasn't Karen's daughter or granddaughter in a previous draft. The reveal she's related to the space president is very brief and never brought up again, and all her flashbacks with Karen seem way more familial. Like they hung out that much when she was a kid to the point that they have a special lullaby. Everything is too intense for just a mentor or Karen's legendary status. This is either Gran or a band from a school zone.
I like the G.
The dream voice is real, and so is Karen. Through hyperspace, unbound, whatever, they're all connected mentally. Karen really is comatose somewhere, and the voice wants Imogen to find her. But the Incarnate are hell-bent on slowing her down, including obliterating the entire planet so they could hyperspace the chunks in to try and destroy her. The Incarnate are obviously somehow behind the anomaly, killing millions just for a chance to take down the Kar Kushan. Of course, Imogen turns to her lullaby.
Zealots, deluded fanatics, worse than the Gulsian.
Worse than the Galcian. Those guys who are completely correct? Maybe I'm just crazy, but after their prophecy was proven entirely true, and the survivors, including the Galcian, understood the context that led to their religion, I would think that maybe the perception of them has changed in the hundreds of years since that game. But if you're just trying to make an epic reference without thinking it through, you go, the Galcian were zealots in that game, I'll just bring that up. I hate to say it, but this is genuine, did you actually play the game's territory?
Also, they're kinda, you know, there were like a local threat to them, but we're talking about people who did a fucking planetary bombardment at the same time on like, how many? Dozens? Hundreds of planets? You think the people who fucking wanted to live in the desert and not let you go into space are as bad as them? What? What are we talking about? That's like today when people call everybody they don't like a fucking Nazi. Like, do you know what that that implies, man.
This isn't some tiny piece of background fluff, it's the entire tragedy of that game. And it only gets more insane from here, like Imogen needs to access a progenitor facility to try and repair her hyperspace cores. Karen had already been there, so she then locked it out, or something. As always, Imogen turns to her special lullaby.
Success. Pattern match found.
What?
What?
How? System, explain.
Data corruption pattern is a 97.6% mathematical match to requested waveform.
Why does she look like that that emoji, you know, fucking emoji of the head from the Easter Isles? I can't, man. I fucking can't.
The lullaby is the key to all this. You know what? Fuck it. The voice is called the Incarnate Queen, and she wants to kill billions because she thinks that called the Incarnate Queen.
Quentin Tarantino fucking directed those cutscenes. Look at how fucking profiled her feet are, man. What the fuck? That has to be some kind of fetish thing.
And she wants to kill billions because she thinks that
Why the long face? The fact that it gets even worse after this is insane. I already kinda I literally kinda like checked out mentally, so a literal laughably bad story. Oh fuck yeah, man. Oh yeah.
Navigators are superior to regular people. But the Queen needs even more cores for ultimate power, which Karen did have aboard the car Sejuk, so she's hidden it away somewhere. The Queen wants Imogen to find her so she gets access to the cores, but is also interested in Imogen as another navigator. So why was the Incarnate endlessly trying to kill her? Fuck if I know. Oh man.
So, it is you.
You always knew, clever girl.
It's the scene, and as far as I can tell, Imogen just gets big because she's confident now. I don't know, even people like Gnarly Gnome can do that. The Queen is maybe the reincarnation of a progenitor or something, it doesn't matter. She's incredibly childish. She declares herself the will of the universe, but wants Imogen and Karen to join her. She thinks she's wise and divine, but she's not.
What's up with all the feet in this fucking space? It's a game about spaceships, man. Why are there so many cutscenes where it's just giant feet? That is literally a fucking barely disguised fetish of the fucking writers, of the designers, or the... What? What the fuck, man?
If anything, a bit of an idiot.
What would Karen's Sajet be if Carrick had not burned?
Yeah, Karen Sajet was a real fuck up until then. Believe it or not, I actually am filtering out all kinds of other stupid tangents, because there are just too many here. Like Isaac has a long argument with Imogen saying Karen can't possibly be alive, though we know that Unbound don't work that way. You kill the real War Sage, so the pirates weren't affiliated with the Incarnate, and it's never explained how they had control of hyper-
I didn't even notice that before. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not that prominent, like it's not Quentin Tarantino film prominent, you know. But it's insane that I could pick that out from some cutscenes in a fucking space RTS game, man. That's why it struck me, you know, as something very odd. Like, that wasn't there in fucking, you know, Homeworld 1 and 2 also had, you know, the lady as the lead, but they never like shone fucking light on her feet to show them off, you know?
Space like that then. Imogen then apologizes for killing the War Sage, and the Queen says human lives don't matter like navigators do. She has this all-encompassing, gigantic cloak, but it's also clearly a large security blanket. The Queen is immature and insecure. Her own people hated and distrusted her after her own actions, so now she views common people as only being thralls, and the few navigators like her can be equals. They still both want to get to Karen, and Imogen tracks her down deep through an ice core. You watch the mothership go deeper and deeper, narrowly navigating through chasms of ice, when they finally find it.
Oh my god, it's the frisbee.
It's a gorgeous, emotional piece of music, but at this point, I'm just wondering why the ship is out in the open and we dug through all that ice. This isn't like Titan AE, it is right there.
Lady Karen, it's me, it's Imogen. I felt you calling me.
Yes, Imogen. I called out to you as soon as I sensed your presence.
You know, mysticism in Homeworld was a framework. It wasn't supposed to be actual magical things happening. When you think in space magic, you get scenes like this.
The lullaby. When you sent your distress call, I was only a child. How could you have known that I would find it?
I didn't know, Imogen, but I hoped.
The lullaby, man.
And here you are.
Fuck it. Karen just figured the 6-year-old she knew would one day grow up to be Fleet Command, and would follow in her footsteps, and also would still like that lullaby she taught her when she was a kid, and would then sing it to unlock the hyperspace repair thingy, and then track her down. Because she had faith in her when she was, like, watching Tigger. Fucking what? That's insane! This story is insane! I don't need to break down...
And not in a good way. Not in a good way is very important to underline here, you know? Because you can have an insane story and it be good, like Myth, you know, like fucking Genesis Rising, I guess.
What's wrong about this? It's just obvious nonsense. It would be like me saying, yeah, I taught my neighbor's little kid the Dora the Explorer theme song, and then banked my entire plan on repairing an aircraft carrier for her to say, come on, vamonos, 20 years later. There's more to unpack, but stuff like this puts it in the why bother category. Isaac gives Imogen a long speech where he's sorry for not trusting her. Then the next mission starts.
All ships, prepare to fire.
Isaac, no!
I need you to trust me now, Imogen.
It's circular, who cares? Imogen and Karen both show up because they're gonna plug the hyperspace cores into her big hyperspace ship thing. The Queen thinks since Imogen can make cores, they can have a new race of navigators, but that's not going to happen. By overloading the cores, it causes a hyperspace something, and Karen sacrifices herself to die with the Queen. After destroying habitable worlds and killing billions, the truth is, she was just lonely. So her and Karen will hold hands.
He just made that up. He's fucking with me. He's personally fucking with me, right? Ain't no way, man. Oh, where to even fucking begin with this? And she was a wee. She was itsy bitsy one. She did a little bit of trolling because she was so wee.
As they die in this magical, sparkly realm. And I'm sorry, but I don't feel that bad for Security Blanket Mega Hitler. I just don't. She blew up a whole planet to slow us down. Even though she wanted us to go there. This is fucking nonsense. Who would have thought it would end this way? Oh, man. Oh, shit. That was a real edit. I didn't do that. None of this works because the Queen had nothing to tempt Imogen with. She was just kind of awkward and didn't hate her own people or was outcast or anything. She was just a little weird. The Queen wanted to take away the burden of caring about people, but she was saying let the burden remain right from the very start. They may be currently trapped beyond the gates, but now Imogen is happy, and her hologram of Karen could sing the lullaby all the time. It's not just a bad story, it's a shockingly bad story. It's a kind I thought just did not exist anymore. Homeworld 3's story is like seeing a woolly mammoth in your yard, and also realizing it has leprosy. It's the worst I've seen in a mainstream game in a long time. But hey, war games. This is what it's really all about.
War games, man. War games. No, he's serious. Oh my fucking god. War games, man. Oh look, it's the cool emblem, the non-canon emblem. So the end of the game also shuts down the hyperspace network, which means it ruins the ending of 2, it ruins the game. It was a direct sequel to. It also ruined the spin-off, it also ruined the franchise. Holy fuck, they were going for a hat trick, I guess.
About, right? Skirmish is barely worth a mention.
He's so based for that. He's so based for this.
This is what it's really all about, right?
He's so based for this, man.
Skirmish is barely worth a mention because there are only 6 maps, 3 being 1v1s, no tech tree, or much of anything else there. You can play it, but
1v1 maps in a fucking RTS, man. That is crazy. That is insane. Yeah, man, I love playing my RTSs in a 1v1 setting, you know, with one friend. And you know what's best about 1v1s? You can use a little bit bigger maps that were meant for more players as a 1v1 map. Instead, make half of the maps 1v1. Yeah, sure, man. Pass the crack pipe, brother.
3 being 1v1s, no tech tree, or much of anything else there. You can play...
Not only does it ruin the ending of 2 and make Cataclysm non-canon, but you're stuck far from home and need to make it back. So we regressed back to the beginning of Homeworld 1 somehow. The DLC is going to be like a Somta mining ship found an ancient distress beacon. Now we'll have a face-to-face interview with the captain.
But there's not much to it. War Games is meant for 3-player co-op, and you can do it solo.
Watch them remake the Cataclysm story, but so fucking more lame than Cataclysm was.
You're gonna be capturing a lot if you do that. This setup is easy. You complete objectives on a map, and then find or earn artifacts to upgrade your ships. These will unlock different upgrade branches and will change every time. As you level up or do challenges, you might unlock new kinds of artifacts or new starting fleet types. So as you go through a run, you could focus on what ships to upgrade and make something really fun and intuitive to use. For some reason, a lot of Homeworld's mechanics work more reliably in War Games. They're still pretty drunk, but it's like they're eating a burger or something now. For starters, this does need to be properly balanced for the number of players, because this will become a solo activity within a few years. Finding 2 friends to play Homeworld with is already tricky. Finding 2 friends to play Homeworld 3 with is going to be much harder. Currently, it's not very satisfying either, as you only run through 3 levels and then you're done. There are only 7 maps in total, and sometimes the final mission feels like it should be a middle mission. Like originally this would be 7 maps in a row, but they thought that would wear it out too quickly, so randomized it to try and give it more length. It's okay currently, but if they do polish up the mechanics and add all the stuff they said they would in the next year, it might be really fun. They are going to support modding too, so maybe there's future potential there as well. But there is something...
Man, I don't even want to read chat anymore because of the fucking messages. Like, in the end, the Beast just wanted friends. Watch there be a Beast faction going, Hygarians are friends, not food. This is just fucking depressing at this point, man. Like... Oh man, being acquired by Gearbox is the mind killer, you know. It's the fucking little death of surrounded by 15 writers overwriting your story into fucking garbage.
Deeply sad about seeing Homeworld becoming so multiplayer focused, and focused on a co-op game mode like this instead of skirmish. The series always had great single-player and multiplayer, but the fun here seems to be focused on the latter. It is fun synchronizing with your friends, coordinating taking objectives, making a balanced fleet, and discussing the story of Homeworld 3.
I never saw Karen as that. Like, she was important, yes, but she was never...
I've come to appreciate War Games more for that, because the game basically comes with its own built-in group therapy mode. If War Games does sound fun to you, though, there's no reason to buy this now compared to waiting another year and seeing where it's at. In the end, though, I can't recommend Homeworld 3. They could polish the gameplay up, add a fun multiplayer mode, a lot to skirmish. The story is unsalvageable. This isn't the first series to go through this and won't be the last, but thankfully, those old games are always there. When they first revealed the Kar-Kushan, in the in-game sense, I thought it was carrying on the spirit of all its people. On a meta level, I thought it would carry over things from all the Homeworld games before it. It's still a perfect representation of the game. It's sleek, but slimmed down. It's thinly imitating something that came before it. And deep in the core of it, there's a madness that will slowly be revealed to you. From all the delays and massive layoffs, it's clear something was going wrong during development. It could be there was once something better, or maybe this was salvaged from an even bigger mess. All I know is, I'm glad this is over.
What a bittersweet note to end on. Holy shit, man.
There is no withdrawal from the garden.
There is no escape from Gearbox. It's be acquired and be laid off. There is no becoming an independent studio making middle-sized games. Be acquired and die. Be acquired and have your flagship franchise become medical. At best. It's so weird that Homeworld designates it. It's so weird that Homeworld designates its non-canon spin-off using numbers. Yeah, man, like Homeworld, literally nothing, and Homeworld Cataclysm are like, seem like the only canon entries into this fucking franchise. So Gearbox is the beast. Yeah, with the... And it's like, it is like Cataclysm, you know? The studios that remain need to unionize against the beast before it swallows them. In the end, the real Homeworld 3 was the Genesis Rising. We found along the way. Yeah, man. In the end, the real Homeworld 3 was the giant women that were gigantified by the fucking Genesis Rising, The Rock, something. I fucking hate Gearbox. Actually, somebody should... Actually, I'm not gonna end the sentence because that would make me legally accountable if somebody went and did that, but... Somebody should mail something to the CEO of Gearbox, man. Genesis Rising was better, gotta give it that. It was certainly more interesting, I suppose. It's, you know, too bad they never made Homeworld like into a franchise. Too bad it's stuck in like 20 years ago, you know. Just gotta go with that mindset, you know. It doesn't exist, it can't hurt me. So yeah, that's it for Homeworld 3 review by MandaloreGaming. What more can I say, ladies and gentlemen? What words can I fucking put in here that will make any of this make sense or make it better? I guess fuck Gearbox, oh my god, please take Risk of Rain away from them, man. Oh my god, why did they acquire Risk of Rain? I can't wait for Risk of Rain 3, man. They should make a whole story mode with like in-depth cutscenes to make the rest of the lore of that franchise fucking shit. So yeah, for those of you later watching this on YouTube, I'm sorry. First of all. Second of all, thank you for sticking out this long with me, you know, for supporting the channel, and see you in the next one. Hopefully something better. Hopefully better than this, man. I didn't want to believe that it was this bad. Like, I thought I was prepared, you know, but oh my god, nothing can prepare you for this. Holy.